Okay, you're live.
All right, welcome to the Q&A for the Holo ICO launch. We are about a half an hour before the launch should actually happen. And yeah, here we are. We got a team of people to answer questions, and we are going live on Facebook. What else? Anyone else have something they want to say?
We're going to start with some basic stuff to cover, and then we're going to go into questions. So Arthur, I think David's going to kick it off first, right?
I think so. I actually do not have access to that document that Greg was posting a link to.
Arthur, do you want to? Should we switch the agenda a tiny bit and you talk about how this moment fits within the broader vision?
First. The chat.
Yeah, and
Okay.
then hand over to me, and then I'll talk about the jurisdiction/ICO journey.
Sure. So, yeah, here we are in the life cycle of Holochain and Holo. We started building Holochain a year and a few months ago, and have had an alpha release out over the last 6 months or so. I've been having good hackathons, people building apps on it, that kind of stuff. Holochain is not having an ICO. Don't mean to mention all that for confusion here, but there's another project on top of Holochain called Holo, which is a tool for basically bringing Holochain-based apps, so next-gen peer-to-peer crypto apps, to be able to have them reach mainstream users through the web browser. Holo is having an ICO because Holo has a currency where people get paid for doing hosting to provide these services to people in a web browser. Holochain doesn't have a currency. It is neutral, just like the internet doesn't have a currency built into it, so that we can build many different currencies and apps on top of it. So where we are in the life of this project, we have been delaying this ICO for a number of months because we tried switching jurisdictions, and we kind of got caught in the regulatory bureaucratic delay cycle. And our whole intention was original intention was to launch this by the beginning of January, because we saw it being likely that there would be these kinds of changes and delays coming. And unfortunately, we didn't launch that early, and then we got caught in those delays we saw coming. Grr. So finally, it's happening. And just to clarify one bit of communication, it's not worth doing. So I'll let David talk about the jurisdictions and all that kind of stuff.
Thanks, Art, for setting the context. Hello, everyone. Yep, very excited. 25 minutes to go. So we've told a little bit of this story before, but for those who are new to it, I'll catch you up quickly, and then we'll tell a little bit about what's happening over the last couple of months, short of like where we are today and launching today. So there's a large amount of this is covered on our Medium channel, which you can access through our website, and I'm sure there'll be a link through the live chat to the Medium channel, so I won't spell it out here. And you can see before we even talked about that we were going to be launching an ICO, Arthur put together an ethical ICO series, which laid out how we were going to be approaching fundraising and some of the thinking behind our project. We took that ethical ICO perspective and then tried to apply it to the legal and regulatory frameworks as we could see them. So what that meant for us was, firstly, a completely broad look at jurisdictions around the world that had crypto regulations or crypto legislation. So in other words, we were able to work with a local regulator to make sure that our organization was was working in accordance with local rules. And plus, we just thought those are the kind of jurisdictions that are going to be pushing the boundaries, which is exactly the environment we want to work in, because that's the kind of project we're running. Then we also needed to understand, that there was going to be like long-term security for the project. You could see in many crypto projects, the banking that they might have, the bank might decide to take crypto projects one day, change another day. We wanted long-term security as much as is possible in this environment. We wanted good banking operations so we can be bridging between the crypto world and the current banking world, which is really important for Holo, and especially the reserves accounts in Holo, which won't go into now. Um, and we wanted to be able to find a place where there was a strong community of developers, social organization, service providers. So that was our broad criteria. We then built a short list of jurisdictions and organizational structures, started to understanding the banking opportunities in each of those jurisdictions, the lawyers that we could partner with. And we had a short list originally that was then whittled down to Gibraltar. So as we started working with Gibraltar, we thought, okay, great regulatory environment, good legal or great legal team, and we were pretty happy with the setup. But the banking environment didn't suit us because there's only private banking available, which wouldn't be the kind of banking we'd need for the operations of Holo. And that's a good moment to pause and stress that so much of what we're thinking about with both an ethical ICO and the legal and regulatory framework of of this project is making sure we have an organization that runs. So we're talking about the operations of Holo as it will exist in a world that providing distributed application hosting, when we're thinking more about the operations of the organization and how fundraising can support that rather than the fundraising be the be all and end all. So we were ready to run in Gibraltar, but the banking was a concern for us. And the other concern was the lack of the social change community side of things. And at that time, Arthur and Eric and others were running a hackathon in Liechtenstein and through a fantastic group called the Hoos Transformer Institute. And they'd said, what about Liechtenstein? So we looked into Liechtenstein, and there was a growing regulation. So the regulatory environment wasn't so strong, but there was excellent banking and strong community. So we shifted our focus to Liechtenstein and started, we built an organization there and started going through the ICO process. And I'd say, like, as Arthur just mentioned, we've been over the last few months a little bit caught in this regulatory cycle where countries are looking at ICOs and broader cryptocurrencies and trying to work out how do they work within their existing ecosystem? How do these two paradigms work best together? And so what we've experienced the last few months is both timing challenges. In other words, the ether price drops and has been dropping. And so people in the crypto community have been a little bit less active, which doesn't affect our project, but does affect the noise around ICOs. At the same time, the regulatory environment has just gone a little bit quiet, as in everyone's trying to work out what to do. There's no clear processes, no clear communication structures. So over the last few weeks, we've been talking as a group, and we've decided that we have the full legal opinion from the Gibraltar lawyers, and we're completely in accordance with all Gibraltar laws. We're checking off all of the boxes that are required of ICOs and more. So we're definitely in that top 1%. And even as conversations in Liechtenstein have been going, where we think we're having really solid conversations with the regulator there about our ability to operate Holo in Liechtenstein, and we'll look forward to continuing those conversations. And we just thought the time is right now to launch. So I think we're setting ourselves up for the organization to run in the best possible way. We've got two jurisdictions that are both going to probably support two different aspects of our business in the future. We really appreciate the conversations with the regulators and everyone, especially and the lawyers who have helped make the project either clearer or better or stronger. And now it's time to put it out there, launch, and then begin operations. Matthew, Arthur, Will, any questions, anything that I didn't cover? Oh,
Not from me. Arthur? No. I don't think so.
Sure.
So I'll go ahead and get started on the next part. Or, go ahead, Will.
Okay. Hi, I'm Will, by the way. I have heard lots of people ask kind of, why did you, if you were waiting for regulation all this time, then now you're launching without it. What's going on with that? And I think that question is not correct. Can you address that question that I've heard a lot?
yeah, so I think like it's waiting for regulation is it's not quite waiting. It's not the same as waiting for Godot. So we're not just sitting there expecting a phone call one day to say everything's okay, you can now launch. In both jurisdictions, there's different forms of collaborative process by which you're understanding local laws, the sort of operations of existing projects, things that we need to do to make sure that the project is able to run in the most successful way post ICO, and things to understand about the sort of ever shifting nature of ICOs in that jurisdiction. So over the last few months, for example, we've been going back and forward with the regulator in Liechtenstein just to understand how they would be interpreting our business model versus their regulations versus how their understanding of ICOs would change. So each week there's a development in their understanding of our business model and their understanding of the space and their understanding of how regulation or they may be impacted by this space. Where we got to was a point of view where I think that from both jurisdictions, we now know their concern with ICOs. We're comfortable that our business model doesn't isn't one of the ICOs that they're deeply concerned about. But we came to, from my perspective, we've come to shared understanding, but the regulatory approval process and shared understanding are different, and that's implicit rather than explicit. So from my perspective, where we got to is shared understanding the project will work in both jurisdictions, but we can't operate on this unclear approval process any longer because we've got a team of 30 and it's time to shift gears into operation mode. So that's how I would say it. I don't know, Art, how would you respond?
Yeah, let me just clarify one thing.
Yep.
Gibraltar actually did put laws regarding decentralized ledger technology in place that went into effect in January. The legal team that we worked with is the team that worked with the government to draft those regulations. We have the official legal opinion from the people who wrote the legislation that we are in compliance with that.
Yep.
So the idea that we are not being regulated is just the short answer is that's not true.
Yep.
We actually are in compliance with regulations. The one of the problems, which is a strange problem, is that our lawyers are so connected with the regulators in Gibraltar. They knew that the regulators in Gibraltar were having some hesitancies about ICOs right now, so they were advising that it wasn't a good time to launch, not because we were not in compliance with regulations, but just because the regulator was nervous about stuff in general that had nothing to do with us. So
yeah, exactly. There's a concern around a certain type of and the use of that token that doesn't apply to how we're working. Which, so yeah, it's a great question, but I think the thing it's not that you're waiting. We're going through a collaborative kind of discovery process to make sure that we're able to operate Holo in both of these jurisdictions. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe the final point to really emphasize there is that From the conversations, so for example, we've talked to about 150 ICOs, and also within both of the jurisdictions, we know of other ICOs that we've discussed, and the focus on the fundraising aspect and does your token meet certain criteria is at the expense often of the organization aspect and the launching and the running of the project. And so our perspective has been the launching and the running of the project is more important than the fundraising component, and we're making sure that that is the thing that we're able to do as well as fundraise. But I know many projects that are fine with the fundraising piece, but it's the next stage where the trouble is can't get a bank account, can't deliver on the technology, but most importantly, can't operate in the way that they'd like to operate. So that's the conversation that we've also been having with the regulator.
Will, I think you've probably got the best pulse on the community at the moment in terms of questions around these types of things. Is there anything else that you want to make visible before we jump into the community, the status of the community building efforts?
Unless we have some questions from the various streams, then I don't think so.
Okay, then I'll jump into community. So I'm Matthew Schutte. I'm the Director of Communications on the team, which is a title that we had to come up with because I'm supposed to introduce myself to people. The basic gist is that I speak good. I'm here in Brașov, Romania at the moment, and I'm in the middle of a 34-city community building tour. That's just the tour that I've been on. We've been on much more than that. Arthur's in New Zealand at the moment. He was just in Australia. He's spent time in the United Kingdom and Portugal and Ecuador and all sorts of places, right? Our team's been all over. This is because we're focused, as David mentioned, on operations. We're trying to actually build an ecosystem, a community that will be creating vibrant applications that work and work together and that solve real problems. We're not just trying to sell some tokens. That's not what we're on a mission to do. And this community building effort started within a few months of us writing the first lines of code. Arthur and Eric sat down on New Year's Eve, 2016, just before the beginning of 2017, and began building Holochain. We had envisioned this stuff and mapped out how we wanted to do it for a decade or more. But we actually started writing code just a little over a year ago, as Arthur mentioned. In March of last year, so just over a year ago, we hosted our first hackathon. We had developers from all around the world fly to San Francisco and work together to build the first versions of a peer-to-peer Twitter and peer-to-peer Slack. And since then, we've hosted everything from a residency program where we had volunteers spend the summer in San Francisco to meet.
Uh-oh, we lost Matthew.
Lost in the forest.
To
Like I dropped. Sorry about that. I'm back. So I am getting a little audio feedback though from someone. So yeah, we've got meetups happening all over the world. They're forming in Prague, in Bucharest. There's one in Amsterdam coming up. There's meetups in Brazil, in Pittsburgh, in New York starting up.
Wellington, New Zealand, Austin, Texas, Vancouver, BC.
Montreal.
Yeah. So all over, and they're
Sao
springing up
Paulo,
not because
Brazil.
not because we are paying people, but because our community is so passionate about this that they want to pull this into existence. And we're seeing hackathons, not just hackathons that we're hosting. We had mentioned some hackathons like the one in Liechtenstein, but we did Barcelona and Riga and in Bristol, all over in Europe. Those are things that we were heavily involved in organizing, but other people are independently organizing hackathons, sometimes inviting us to come help facilitate. But our goal has been to trigger and nurture and nourish an ecosystem. And so at the moment, I'm on this community building tour, as is Arthur, as are others, running around planting seeds, introducing people to the new patterns that we're making use of and that we're demonstrating, and introducing them to one another. So if you get excited about what we're up to, I'll give the basic overview of what we're up to, which is we are interested in changing how humans can coordinate, how they can work together, how they can make decisions, how they can take actions. And in order to do that, we've built a new way of building and running applications that can accomplish that. We've created this peer-to-peer application layer, Holochain, that can do that. And now we're launching this Holo hosting service to make it easier for these peer-to-peer applications to reach everyone. So that when someone builds their own peer-to-peer Airbnb, they don't only have early tech adopters as guests. They can have anyone who can open a web browser come visit their service. We think that bridging role is really important, but it also will provide us with a mechanism for subsidizing the larger ecosystem. We have a business model for that hosting service, and that business model will help us to fuel and nourish the larger Holochain ecosystem. So if you're excited about this stuff, please go to our online communication channel at chat.holochain.net, sign up, reach out to me. I'm at Matthew Joseph, or Greg at Greg. That's one simple, Greg. And ask about, hey, I'm interested in hosting a meetup, or I want to learn a little bit more. And we'll point you to resources, and we'll connect you with other folks, because we want to make it easy for you to help grow this in the ways that are relevant for you. We also have a Telegram channel. We can share that in Facebook, but it's the Holochain and Holo Host Telegram channels. The Holo Host one is the one that's really vibrant at the moment. If you have questions about the ICO, there's lots of information there. But that channel is new, so we've had questions about, why are there so few people in your channel? Well, because we started it three days ago. Will can fill you in more on the Telegram stuff. And I think that's about it for me. So I'll throw it over to Will. Will.
Cool. So yeah, I'm Will Harris Brown, and I've been doing a lot of community management right now, among many other things. So I'll talk a little bit about, yeah, I guess I'll start with our Telegram channel. That was really cool. We kind of started it on a whim. We gotten a few requests from people to make a Telegram channel. That would be a good idea. And we were kind of like, okay, because we want to focus on our Mattermost most of the time, our chat server. But we started it, and this like amazing response from like the crypto community arose, and it was really cool to see. There's like 100 people on the first day, 250 on the second day. It's crazy. So thanks for everyone that's on there. That's really cool. I'm having a good time like being on there and answering people's questions. What
is that channel called, Will?
Yes. It is the t.me link is channel Holo. So if you type http:/t.me/channel Holo, that should get you there. And I will say we're trying to focus in that channel on kind of ICO questions. And if you have more like detailed tech questions about Holochain or about the details of how Holo works, chat.holochain.org or chat.holochain.net, like Matthew said, our chat server, which is a little more rich in the ways it can operate and the ways we can communicate with you through it, is a better place to ask those more detailed questions. And not only does like make our lives easier, you'll actually get better answers there if you have those detailed tech questions. So that's a better option for the detailed tech questions. But if you have ICO questions or just want to hang out with those people on Mattermost or on Telegram, the Telegram channel is a great place. I think I will go into a little bit of the supply dynamics of the ICO, if that's okay, because I've been hearing there's a little bit of confusion about that. It is a little confusing. It's not maybe the normal way that an ICO works with supply. So there's some important things to consider. Is that Matthew? Did you want to say something?
I was going to say, can you tell them why? Why is it not the normal way that things work? Why are we doing something different?
Are you raising your hand?
Yeah, I'm raising my hand. Just because we're trying to design a next generation cryptocurrency to be a value stable, asset backed currency. And that's what the design of Holo Fuel is once Holo launches. And so the design of our longer term currency is actually different from the tokens that are being sold as transferable digital receipts that are temporary. They're only going to be around for like 6 months, and you turn them in for Holo Fuel. And so a lot of people are asking questions as if the whole project is about these temporary receipts, and it's not. And so a lot of the way people expect things to work is based on the assumption that it's a token-based project, and it's not, because Holo Fuel is actually a crypto accounting type of system. So you don't get to create tokens from nothing. Every time an account is credited, there has to be an offsetting debit. So for the money we raise in the ICO, what's actually happening is we're going to be in debt that amount of money when we credit the accounts in Holo Fuel, as the Holo tokens are redeemed into Holo Fuel. So just sorry to jump in the middle of that. I want you to be able to talk about the tokens, Will, but just to say that part of why the tokens are not just a normal business as usual type of thing is because they're just a temporary marker for a longer term currency designed for value stability by being backed by the asset of computing power. Back to you, Will.
And I'm just
about
going
the
to make
tokens.
one quick point. It looks like we are a few minutes away from launch. So I just want to make that visible.
Cool. Yeah, I will pause in time to do a little celebration when we launch. But Art, thanks for that context. Yeah, that's important. I will now talk a little bit about how the Holo tokens themselves will operate, because they are how we're distributing a lot of that Holo Fuel, which is our long-term vision for our cryptocurrency. In between, until then, we're using the tokens as stand-ins. So there's an important thing to understand, which is that on the first day, a bunch of tokens will be released. And then after that, the only new tokens that will be added to the supply to be available for anyone to buy will happen based on purchases in our Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign. So you've probably heard about our Indiegogo campaign. It's where we're distributing Holo ports, which are some of the devices that you'll be able to use to host on Holo, and also doing some stuff around developer training and stuff like that. And the purchases that happen there inform the released tokens into the supply of the ICO. So why does that happen? That's because we want the ICO to reflect the way that our ecosystem will actually look. And we figured the best way to predict that was to look at the people who have bought holoports, who are going to be hosters, and the people who have bought a dev training ticket, and we're going to learn to develop on Holochain, and who are going to participate in that network. And we figured if we base the amount of our currency that's being available for people to buy on the the strength that our ecosystem is going to have, that's going to be the right way to do it. I'm going to pause here because it looks like it's about time.
Should we
we're
keep going and wait?
Waiting for a Yeah, go ahead, David.
Yeah, Matthew, I was just gonna say the same thing. Should we wait until we get the text confirmation that it's all running? So you keep going, and as soon as
keep going.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll jump in.
So that's how new tokens are added to the supply, through Indiegogo campaign purchases. And so on the first day, 2.5 million euros worth of Holo tokens will be released, approximately. There's the exact number. I believe it's 2.5. Let's see, 2.5 billion, 250. Sorry, let me check. This is important. On the first day, yes, 25 billion Holo tokens will be released. And those are not reserved for anybody. Anybody has the opportunity to purchase them. Looks like something's happening.
So we're live.
Anybody who is not in the US, South Korea, or China.
Throughout the whole ICO, only whitelisted participants will be able to purchase.
Did you just say we're live?
All right, Arthur, do you want to do the honors?
Okay, I guess we're
5,
live.
4, 3, 2,
2,
1.
1.
We are
Yay!
live.
Hey.
The ICO has opened. Starting gates.
So, Will, where do they go? If they've got whitelisted and they're all set up and ready, where do they go?
If you're whitelisted, if your address is on our whitelists, go to holo.host. Oh, sorry. Go to ico.holo.host. https://ico.holo.host. You'll find our ICO.
Make sure
site.
the S is in that HTTPS.
Yeah, make sure that you're on a secure site, that you have the little green lock in your address bar. There's an article that I hope will be posted in the comments of these streams that gives you very detailed instructions on how to carry your purchase out, so it's accurate and also secure. But yeah, that's where to go. If you're not whitelisted and you don't live in the US or China or South Korea, go to verify.holo.host and sign up.
Perfect.
I guess, should I keep talking
Okay,
about supply?
everybody, should we take just one breath? Since that's kind of our practice in our community.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, go ahead, Will.
Okay, I'll keep addressing supply. So we've gotten to the point where 25 billion tokens have been released. They just were for anyone to buy who's whitelisted. Now, how does the rest of it work?
Sorry, can I just say, yes, 25 billion tokens, but that's at 10,000 tokens per euro. That's essentially 25 million euro. Sorry, 2.5 million euro that just got released.
The tokens are very small, and there's a reason for that.
Approximately, the actual price is in ETH.
Yeah, that's a good thing to mention. Let's mention this. The price of a Holo token is defined in ETH. It already has been defined. You can go find it on our website, the exact price, on our ICO site, which is our informational ICO page, holo.host/ICO. It won't change throughout the whole ICO. It's a constant price.
Can we?
Hmm?
Can we read that? Can we
Sure.
read that out? Someone?
Yeah. I can do it right now. So 10,000 Holo tokens cost 0.0022671895 ETH. So one Holo token costs,
it's not quite pi, but
one Holo token costs, another 10,000ths of that number that I just read, but that would be take a lot longer to read, so I'm not gonna do that. So if you have reserve tokens, what do? You can participate right now if you want to buy more tokens than your reserve tokens, but you don't need to. Reserve tokens are always released into the supply 3 days after you made your purchase, or if you made your purchase before the beginning of the ICO, 3 days after the beginning of the ICO. So everybody who's purchased so far in the Indiegogo campaign, all the over $600,000 worth of all those purchases, those tokens will be released on March 31st, which is the third day of our ICO, which is, I guess, 3 days from almost exactly right now. Those will be released into the supply. The ones that are reserved will be available to purchase, but only by the people who they're reserved for. And you can check that you have reserved tokens on your verify.holo.host dashboard. And I think you should actually see them on the ICO site, ico.holo.host. If you are using, for example, MetaMask and you have your address in there, then it'll recognize who you are and tell you your stats on that, I believe. The rest of the tokens that aren't reserved for anybody that are getting released, they get released, and anybody who's whitelisted is able to buy those. So that's people in the Indiegogo campaign who made purchases but aren't eligible to participate in the ICO. Those the tokens that correspond to their purchase in the Indiegogo campaign get released for anyone to purchase who's whitelisted.
And how long are tokens reserved for, again, for folks who get reserved tokens after they make a purchase?
Thanks. Yeah, that's a good question. They're reserved for 24 hours. So everything happens at 10 a.m. UTC or GMT in the ICO. So it was just launched at that time. And that's when reserve tokens come out. And that's when 24 hours after your reserve tokens are released, that's when they'll, if you haven't bought them, be released for anyone to buy.
So every single day of this ICO, new tokens are going to be released at 10 a.m. GMT.
As long as there were purchases in the Indiegogo.
Yes.
Which there most likely will be. Do we have any other questions that I could quickly address?
Go ahead, Will.
Issues in any of the channels that we're monitoring, any of the stream comments, or I'm just quickly checking Mattermost here. This says, how quickly will my account show my tokens? I receive a message to say I was successful, then a further message saying supply has sold out. I don't know the specifics. You should, if you made a purchase and it went through, you should see your tokens almost immediately. There's instructions on how to do that at holo.freshdesk.com. That's our support portal. Look for the article about Holo tokens.
Do we have a way, Will, to see the sales chart or the sales going to that wallet so we can see if they actually have sold out?
I'm looking right now.
That would be interesting given we're 7 minutes in or whatever, but could have happened for day one. It's only 2.5 million.
Mm-hmm. No, it doesn't look like it's sold out. It says almost 5 billion hot sold.
Yeah, so we're about 20%. Is it?
Yeah.
Right. So the first
more now.
20%.
There's more now. Well, I'll also look at Etherscan.
Do you want to put that link into our group chat?
Yes. And anyone can actually look at this. This is totally public information. etherscan.io/address/ico.holo-host.eth. Oh, some of these purchases are not having enough gas on them. Oops. Yeah, it says.
So while Will takes a look at that and figures out what's going on, I will just ask him after he has some assessment to make visible. If you have recommendations for folks, what those recommendations would be. You mentioned just a second ago that some of these don't have enough gas. What does that mean? How would that happen?
I don't know the specifics of how that happened for those specific people, but if you use MetaMask to access our ICO site, it will generate a transaction for you, and that transaction should have the correct gas amount already set up. Art, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that this is more than a one-step transaction, because if you're treating it just like a normal payment transaction, it needs to have enough gas to issue the tokens and send them back to you. So there's actually two transactions happening in it. And so sometimes wallets trying to save you money on gas will lower you down to like the minimum amount of gas you would need as if you were just doing one transaction. You probably had better double that number if you're using a wallet that's doing that. And potentially maybe even a little more than double that number for some of the computation and issuing the tokens, because it's at least a multi-step process where you send the money into the wallet, it releases the tokens and sends them back.
Another thing to point out, can we make visible the point about not sending tokens from a certain type of site?
If you do not, this is pasted all over our whitelisting site and such, but I'll mention it here. If you do not send us tokens from Coinbase or Kraken or any other exchange account, any account where you are buying tokens from it directly into that wallet, like Coinbase, they're not, you don't control those wallets really. They're controlled by that entity for you. It's a complicated situation, but in essence, if you buy tokens with that address that you have there, if you send directly from Coinbase, for example, our contract has no choice as to but to send the ERC20 tokens back into that same address that that you sent from, and Coinbase isn't ERC20 compatible. So your tokens will be in your Coinbase address, but you won't be able to access them at all.
Yeah, can I just say again slightly differently? So how we were just talking about the gas cost of you're sending ETH to this account, to the smart contract, but the smart contract is then sending tokens back to the wallet that you sent the ETH from. If that wallet is a Coinbase wallet and we send those tokens back into that wallet, Coinbase doesn't give you a way to access them. So they're kind of in limbo. There's a question as to whether you can ever get them if you do that, because you don't control that wallet. Coinbase does. So you should only be sending these from a wallet that you control the private key of.
Like example wallets that are good: MetaMask, My Ether wallet, a hardware wallet.
Great. And they can find more information on our website at holo.host. Okay. Do we have any questions coming in from the community yet through Facebook or other channels? David, do you have, or Will, do you have that document pulled up? Because I know Arthur does not have that at the moment because of his DNS thing that's going on.
Yep, I've got, so the first one for Arthur, can you explain the difference between blockchain and holochain in 1 minute?
I think the most important difference is that blockchain is token centric. It is built around the idea of coins or tokens, and it's managing an inventory of those tokens being spent or not spent in a global ledger that all of the nodes have to synchronize with each other. Holochain is a completely different approach to the architecture. It takes the idea of the cryptographic chaining for immutability, pushes it out to people. So each person or agent or account has its own chain. And then there's a way to share the data published to a DHT, a distributed hash table. So we like to call our model an agent-centric model instead of a data-centric or token-centric model. And the advantages of doing this inversion are massive differences in scalability. This is the way nature scales. So to explain it slightly more simply, without using the language of blockchain or holochain, in blockchain, every part is supposed to also have embody the state of the whole. That would be like every cell in your body having to keep track of the state of the whole body. In holochain, we say every cell manages its own state, and there's ways for them to communicate that state with each other. And that every cell doesn't need to have the state of the whole body. Every cell needs to follow the rules in the DNA for how to change the state of a cell. And then we can enforce those rules with the validating DHT. So it's just a way of shifting the structure of the architecture, which is the way that natural systems scale.
Perfect. David, do you have another question teed up?
Yep, so the next, I'll go for it, Will.
Oh, I'll just jump in. I'm seeing a question. I'm getting some feedback from someone. Great. I'm seeing some questions on our channels. One of the main ones is, I just sent my transaction, how do I see my Holo tokens? There's a guide on how to do this on our site, and I am going to send it to someone who can post it in the comments of this the comments of this stream right now. That'll show you how to set up your wallet so you can view how many Holo tokens you have.
And while he's doing that, Will, can you share the next question? Or not Will, David, can you share the next question? I'm not hearing anything. Maybe you're muted.
There you go. So Matthew or Arthur, this one for you guys. Could you explain how Holochain is different from Hashgraph?
Art, do you want to take that one as well?
Sure. I actually have a blog post about this recently. If you want to Google Holochain versus Hashgraph, there's a write-up about it. But the basic gist is that Hashgraph is making a hybrid, a partial transition from being token-centric to agent-centric, in that their consensus algorithm, the way that they reach agreement, they actually look at the point of view of agents and how agents have gotten other information about other agents' gossip about transactions. So it's like this funny layers of gossip about gossip is part of how they refer to it. But it points to the fact that at least it's a blockchain approach that points to the fact that different agents see different things at different times and build different realities, and that you can actually create a reality from that. They create a median timestamp kind of thing. So they have a hard-coded approach to that. And there's there are claims of 100,000 transactions per second, but my understanding is that when you have a lot of agents, that it actually is maxing out at like 100 transactions per second. And that makes a lot of sense, because when your consensus is now about gossip, there's not only do you have the transactions that you have to get around to all the agents and have them validated, but then you have to have the information about when did I see this, and when did each agent see this, and have that get around to everybody. And so there's like a little bit of a complexity explosion as the number of agents grow, where in Holochain actually gets more efficient the more agents there are. And what we mean by that is each agent needs to do a smaller portion of the work, because the DHT, the distributed hash table, which is the shared ledger space, is sharded. You have the ability to break that into pieces. That means the larger it grows, the smaller the piece of the pie is that you're having to maintain. So the more the load is distributed across agents as things happen. So instead of the complexity growing exponentially while agents grow, number of agents grows, it actually goes linearly.
So yeah, and I'll try to just give an example to make that visible. So if you had an application where you were holding 10 copies of every tweet, right? Let's say this is a Twitter, a microblogging style Holochain app, and you had 10 copies made and you only had 10 users. Well, in that kind of app, you would have every user holding onto a copy of every tweet, right? But if you have 100 users and you're doing 10 copies of every tweet, every user is holding on to 1/10 of the total tweets, right? And so the system actually gets more efficient. The portion of information that you're having to keep track of and hold on to decreases relative to the size of the community. I will say about Hashgraph, I really like the team. I've met the CEO and the inventor. They seem awesome. They are taking a different path than us. They're trying to solve different problems than we are, right? They're primarily at the moment focused on permissioned, basically competing with the permissioned blockchain space, which from what I've been told makes sense, because their system has this sort of gossip about gossip voting protocol, but it needs to know how many votes there are. It needs to know when they've crossed some threshold. And if you have an open system, you don't know how many actors are in the system, then you don't know when you cross the threshold. That was something that was told to me by someone last week. So this may be hearsay. I may be getting this wrong, but someone who built an alternative solution. David, next question.
So oh, yep, no, I'm not on mute again. Okay, so the next question will be, will the ERC20 token be sold on exchanges? Is Holo in talk with any of the large exchanges?
Okay.
Do you want to go for that one, David? Or-
Yeah, I'm happy to, and then we can see any other people can pick up. So
Can I just say something else really quickly? Sorry, first about
go for it, Will.
the ICO right now. People are saying things about gas price. Some people are experiencing failed transactions. Check your gas price if you're making a transaction. I think that someone was saying that, let's see, gas limit 205500 was working for them. I don't really know the details of, what's working, what's not, obviously, because I'm trying to do two things at once. But if you go to our welcome channel on our Public Mattermost, there's more discussion about that, and I think someone there can help you. Go ahead, David. Thanks.
Will, do you want to give an update as well on the ICO? Do you have on current numbers?
Sure. I will say something else. If you are trying to view your tokens based on the instructions and you're using my Ether wallet, you need to add, it's not quite correct. You need to put in a different name for hot, like just put in HOTT or something, because it's just a cosmetic difference. It's nothing about our token that's different. It's just that's the only way that my Ether wallet will allow you to view your balance. I am looking right now to see our contract address. Oh, I'll look here. It looks like we are just about at 75 billion hot sold, I think. No, sorry, 7.5 billion hot sold. It's not super easy to see how much ETH that is.
All right, should we jump?
David.
We'll jump back into the questions. Yep.
Yeah.
So the question was, will the ERC20 token be sold on exchanges? And so people have asked us this question back and forth in different forms of conversation. And the primarily my response is, we're focused on making sure our tech works. We're focused on telling the story for the community and the ecosystem that we've already built Holochain, and we're building Holo on top of Holochain. We're focused on building the organization that works in the way that we think organizations should be running in the future. We're thinking about, how to bootstrap effectively. We're helping to equip people to be able to develop apps on top of Holochain. We're helping people see how Holochain, we think, is going to be the future of where blockchain is but can't quite see yet. So that's our real focus as an organization right now. We haven't, as people can see through the ethical ICO series and a lot of our communication, we're not focused on necessarily the fundraise as an opportunity for people in the crypto space to buy a whole lot of tokens and have a quick turnaround and sell them on an exchange in the next few weeks. Actually, what we think we're building is going to be the kind of medium of exchange that a lot of cryptocurrencies want to be, but don't know how to quite get there in the future. So a long way of saying, no, we haven't been focused on building relationships with exchanges and getting our tokens listed on exchanges or paying for it and doing those negotiations. What we're focused on for all you guys out there listening is building amazing technology and a thriving ecosystem. And we think that is the best way for everybody who participates at this early stage to realize value. Now, there are members of the community that desperately want Holo tokens listed on exchanges. So we're not just like building an ecosystem. We're not going to stop them from having discussions with exchanges, telling them about Holo tokens and going through that process and maybe getting some of our help or support. But it's not something we're actively seeking at the moment, because we think all the long-term and medium-term value is going to come out of us focusing on what I just described at the start. Anyone else want to
And so I'll
jump in?
frame that a little bit as, yeah, I'll just say, to make visible why, in shorter words, we're not aiming to support speculation. We recognize people are going to speculate. We appreciate that, but that's not the pattern that we're trying to encourage. We're trying to pull in the investors who are excited about this and want to see this in the world, and have them participate in this ecosystem as it matures. Not somebody who bought something today and they're flipping it tomorrow.
Yep.
That's not the pattern that we were aiming to participate in or support. So we're looking to build community again. Will.
Yeah, I will say that we've heard that it is important that Holo tokens are on exchanges, and we are doing some work to make that happen. We have applied to Fork Delta, I believe.
What is the next question, David?
Next question is, I got the dev training camp perk on Indiegogo. Do you know when the alpha beta tester developer tools will be ready?
That one's probably for you, Art.
Yeah, those sound like two different things. The alpha beta tester stuff, that's alpha testing for Holo. I would recommend that you already be alpha testing Holo chain if you are at all technical, and even if you're not. Hey, Will, do you know if Eric got Alpha 1 out this week?
I haven't heard that he did.
Okay, and I can't access sites right now to check, but we've been doing releases that are just easy. You just download a zip file, unzip it, and then you can run peer-to-peer Twitter type thing. I mean, it literally takes 5 minutes to get up and running. So if you want to start playing with that as a non-technical person, just to try it out, that's a great way to start. As a technical person, I'd highly recommend just even experimenting a little, walking through the Holo World demo or something like that. Philip has recorded a bunch of videos, so you can already play with Holo Chain. Holo is not built yet. I hope to have that be alpha in the next few months, but it isn't built yet, and we're actually in the process of hiring developers to build that. So that's hard to give the exact timeline on that one. But we will, those alpha people will be the first people we notify to have them start testing Holo in a little safe private network of early adopters who are willing to cut their teeth on it early. What was the second part of the question? The dev training.
Yep.
So we've been doing hackathons all over the place. We also have a few corporate trainings, and the dev training ticket is basically, the idea is it's for kind of an upgraded hackathon. Not all of our hackathons have been charging admission. Some of them, actually, I think most of them have been free. But the dev training perk includes some other things that people at hackathons have not been getting. We are rolling out kind of a next wave of upgraded hackathons soon. I think we have an online form somewhere. Unfortunately, I can't access web pages at the moment. But for casting some votes on where you want trainings to be and where you want hackathons to be. And also, if you want to participate in organizing one in your area, that helps as well, because we're really trying to support a lot of these happening all over the place. Hope that answers the question.
And
Yep.
Art, Are you envisioning us doing some online versions
Yeah,
for those dev trainings?
yeah, I'm actually not the one organizing that, but yes, people are starting to put together a series of online ones as well. Um, let me just also say that Holochain is surprisingly easy to use. If you've ever tried messing around with like Solidity or smart contracts or things like that, that's a much more kind of opaque environment. Um, Holochain, we built it using languages that are already in common use, like JavaScript, and there's already a lot of tools around. Plus, we have a scaffolding engine that is a GUI that you fill things out, and it barfs out files and directories for you that get you started basically. And we have this nifty test driven development process where you can just like make one thing at a time work, um, and get your test to go from red to green and celebrate each time. It's kind of fun. And the point of this is actually we've had especially at these last hackathons that I just did in Melbourne and Sydney, we had non-technical people step in to doing development and actually be able to build things in the course of a weekend, even though they came in without JavaScript coding experience and that kind of stuff, and they walked away with, you know, a rough build that they were going to have some other people make pretty on the UI side. The UI was pretty ugly, but at least the back end parts they had working. The whole chain data, distributed data integrity parts were working, and then they were going to have one of their friends who's a web designer make it pretty. Um, and so I just want to say that it's within reach, and doing some online trainings, going to a weekend hackathon. It's okay to come in. The more you know about what you want to build when you come in, the more likely you're going to have it in your hands when you leave.
Yep. So actually, probably this one.
And that was exactly the case last weekend in Copenhagen. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, just working through some of these. So Will, I think this one for you from Rick. I see the deposit address, but it said my MetaMask account was not registered, so I logged out and want to send from my correct MetaMask MEW address. How do I confirm that?
You want to send from my Ether wallet and not MetaMask. Okay, so if you go to, I assume you're already on the ICO page, ico.holo.host. If you scroll down, there are instructions on how to do that. The address will be displayed in both full number format and also our ENS address, which looks like ico.holo-host.eth. That's a special Ethereum address, which is made out of letters, but it still will go to the right address. And then you want to log into MetaMask with your regular credentials or hardware wallet or however you use that, and do send tokens, or send ETH, I guess, send ETH, I think. And you should then be able to put in the right information. So our address, which is displayed there on the ICO page. There's some important security instructions underneath the address where it's displayed. Please read those and follow those. That's super important. So you should always do that no matter what, whenever you're sending ETH to us. And yeah, you should be able to send ETH just directly through MetaMask as you'd usually send a transaction.
Okay, perfect. And we'll back to the gas cost. And there's a question here from Khalid who says, please let everyone know that the gas cost should be 41 according to the Ethereum gas tracker, not 1. And he had to modify the gas price for the transaction.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Khaled, for that. Also, for just, that's in a way that's stuff we almost couldn't have predicted, and it's really important that the community is jumping in for that. So thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Next question. So Seth says there must be some way, people who are regulated by the SEC, so people in the US or people who live in restricted countries, what if we purchase the tokens with another cryptocurrency?
We can't make the offering available in the US. We expected all along the SEC to smack down cryptocurrencies, and they have made it very clear in recent weeks that they are doing so. they have said they haven't seen any cryptocurrency, any ICO that they would not classify as a security. And this is not registered as a security in the US. We did not want to spend the millions to go through that registration process. There are other ways to participate, like with the Indiegogo campaign and becoming a host, so you can earn credits and that kind of thing. But yeah, we are unfortunately, we figure that we're going to be much more successful at delivering this project if we're not in jail. So we're not offering it in the US.
And the difference between Holo and Substratum?
It's been a while since I've looked at Substratum. I mean, Substratum is also a hosting platform, as far as I understood last time I looked. It was a file hosting. Like, you can put data, you can put files. It doesn't host dynamic applications. It doesn't run something like a peer-to-peer Twitter or peer-to-peer Facebook or peer-to-peer Slack or anything like that. In fact, most of the systems that people ask us about, what about Holochain versus blah blah blah, the main difference is usually either they don't run dApps, they only do transactions, or they are file hosting, not application hosting. They can't actually do dynamic application hosting. So like MadeSafe and Filecoin and all those types of things, storage. There's a whole bunch of systems that basically do file hosting, and they call that hosting. But we're talking about dynamic hosting, like you would do an Amazon Web Servers type of thing, where you expect it to be interactive, not just static.
Perfect. And Matthew, this one for you. This is from Alexander. Once the ICO is concluded, will you start any marketing efforts to spread the word? I believe cryptocurrency people will be most interested in this project.
Well, I mean, we are marketing now. It's just that marketing hasn't been our focus as much as community building, and we will continue doing that. Community building is a different form of marketing. The way we look at it, it's a deeper form of marketing because it ends up having people not just go, "Oh, that's interesting." It has people actually start to engage and build things. So we're not opposed to marketing. It just hasn't been our focus. And we're working on getting better at that, but our focus has primarily been on the deeper community building. So yes, definitely going to be doing more marketing, but we will continue doing the community building stuff as well. And I think if I were to make this visible, and I think this is a failing on our part at some level, we are people who get told they should check this out. Sometimes they hit one of our websites and they scan it quickly and they go, this looks like it's some Bitcoin thing. I'm not interested in that. Or I'm not a geek. I'm not technical. And then they bounce off. And so the onboarding from, I know nothing about this, to, oh, that might be interesting. I think we've got a gap there that we still need to work on. But once people spend, even a few minutes digging through our blog or watching a video or two, they go, whoa, wait a minute, this is different. This is really interesting. And away they go, right? But we definitely have some room for improvement. And I don't expect us to wait till the end of the ICO to work on that. I think we'll be working on that throughout.
Could I say a couple things too about that? We definitely also have our websites targeted to different audiences. Holochain is more technical and is geared to developers, and Holo is more about the community building and the social change and take back the internet and own your own data. And we also have the problem of sometimes the wrong audience lands on the wrong site. A technical person lands on Holo and is like, this is all a bunch of empty talk. There's no technical information about how they're going to do it. And then, somebody who's heard exciting things about this is going to change the world lands on the technical website and says, where's the change the world stuff? This is just technical gobbledygook to me. So that's another thing that we have that we're trying to get a little bit better at cross referring those when the person lands on the wrong site, when the wrong audience lands on the wrong site. But I do also want to point out. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I do also want to point out that yes, we are marketing. I don't know that we will ever market strong to the mainstream crypto speculation community. That's not really the first community we're trying to attract. I mean, just to say it kind of simply or bluntly, we only have one chance to create our first community. And that first community is going to establish the social norms and culture of the group that grows on top of it. And we actually are, this project is not about get rich quick. It's not about, maximizing return on investment. It's actually about building the next economy. And for us, that has a lot to do with being responsible, being stable, having people produce the asset that it's built on, and that kind of thing. So there's a whole bunch of things that don't map to the current kind of ICO craze and crypto gambling, crypto speculation kind of craze. And so we're not actually trying to target those people initially, because we want to attract a set of solid people that are going to be in this for the longer haul, not just looking for when can I get a return. So we're just targeting a little bit differently. So it may look like we're not marketing because we're not showing up in a lot of the traditional crypto spaces.
So the next one is, can organizations who are building apps participate in the ICO? The whitelisting seems to be aimed towards individuals. Will, is this part of the FAQ somewhere?
I don't know if we have much on it.
I think that the simplest way is that there are ways to do it. If you get in touch with Will, he and I will work with you to make it work.
Assuming your organization is not owned by U.S. citizens or
exactly. There's a whole series. It's you don't subvert the whitelisting process. There's just there's a manual whitelisting process that we go with our verification provider that we would work through with you. But it's better work through Mattermost and work through directly. So the next one is, how does the falling price of ETH, first of all, affect Holo's strategy, given that the value of what you'll be raising is currently falling by the day? And secondly, how does this affect the price movement of HOT and then fuel? Is the value still theoretically pegged to the value of €1 worth of euro on the Ethereum platform, or does that change with a falling ETH price?
Do you want me to say some stuff about that? So during the course of the ICO, the token price is fixed at what we just fixed it at and launched it at. We decided not to do any of the crazy gaming of, the price is rising every day, you better buy it now, or, reverse Dutch auction or any of that kind of stuff. It's actually a fixed price for the duration of this offering. So when the ICO ends, then Holo tokens become transferable. And assuming that we are on exchanges, I know that there's at least stuff for Ether Delta and IDEX moving, and there's other things moving. But assuming that there's exchanges that's being traded on, the value of HOT then becomes a function of it starts looking a heck of a lot like a normal cryptocurrency for some months until Holo is launched and people start redeeming their HOT tokens into Holo Fuel. And I would bet that that's going to serve to stabilize the price of the HOT tokens a lot, because once Holo Fuel starts having a price at which it's being offered for the hosting credits for computing power, which is part of the whole design of it being a value stable currency, is that it's correlated to the network's capacity to provide computing power, not just correlated to the speculation prices on exchanges. Um, that that will affect how much variance there is on Holo token price, even outside of Holo. And then as all the tokens get put into Holo, the idea is that the price is fairly stable. That's not static, it's stable. It's a function of hosts who are setting their own pricing for hosting services. But we expect to be able to provide hosting services at very competitive rates, and once the price kind of gets pushed down to sort of the equilibrium of what it costs to provide those services, and that kind of thing, um, we we think it's going to stabilize in that domain. Um, so sorry. So does the price of ETH affect it? Only really are we coupled to ETH during the ICO, and I think you're actually getting a better deal because we already fixed the price in ETH. If ETH is getting cheaper, you're actually buying more. If you buy ETH after it drops further, then you're actually getting more for your money than the current rate of ETH, because we fixed it already based on the week's average before the ICO. So that does affect how much ETH we get, which, yeah, such is the nature of the current volatile cryptocurrency world.
Yep, that is it. Any of you guys, that's it for the questions that are in the document. Is there anything that's coming through any of your channels, Arthur or Will or Matthew?
I don't have a channel, but I will finish the comment that I was going to make earlier before we started jumping into the more urgent stuff, while maybe Will takes a look at the Mattermost. Art had mentioned some of the, how easy it is to build some of these things. And last weekend in Copenhagen at our hackathon, we had a bunch of folks who had developer skills, and we had some folks, as Arthur had said, in Australia who didn't have great developer skills or were sort of rusty. And within a day, we had a whole bunch of folks building applications. Right, they had gone through just an evening of some training, just a few hours, and then the next morning a couple hours, and then they were off and running. And they still had questions and things, but they were able to get started building stuff. And Art had also mentioned having an idea of what you want to create can help a whole bunch. Well, that's exactly what happened as well. We had one of our community members, Victor Zonders, who came in with an idea. He said, one of the things I'm interested in building is a distributed library. He lives in a community of 900 people. It's not enough people in that community to run a library, but they all have books in their homes. And so he went, it'd be cool if we could loan books to one another. And he ended up building, alongside a few other folks, our first peer-to-peer sharing economy app on Holo, at least the first one I've seen on Holochain. And they call it DistroLib, or distributed library. So, and that was, in a day, they were able to get something up and running. And it's, a simple version, but I think they're going to run with it and improve it. And guess we'll have a lot of other folks making use of that pattern, those kinds of patterns as well, because the sharing economy stuff is definitely one of the application spaces that we foresee this getting used in quite a bit. Any updates or other questions from you all?
I was just asking Will if there's any update on how much is sold, because I still can't load Etherscan or any other website.
Some people have been saying there are 2 addresses shown on the ICO site. If you are unsure at all about which address to send to, do not send any ETH. That's really important. We have various ways for you to check that the address you're sending to is actually our address, and they should be listed on the site. There's a video where Eric Harris Brown shows the address, and speaks it out loud. There's a true pic, which is supposedly a untamperable picture. It's really important that you don't send ETH to any address that you don't know absolutely is our address. We're looking into why some people are seeing two addresses. It could be just that they're confused, or it could be something that's going. That's
It
just
could be that
unclear
someone's
about it.
attacking us. I have no idea. There's a slight chance that it could be that someone was trying to attack, right? So
It's possible. We're looking into it. Please be absolutely sure before you send any ETH. Yeah, I can also answer the other question. Sorry, I just wanted to say that.
Perfect. I'm not saying that because we know anything about that, but that has happened in the past.
Okay. I just got a screenshot, and it was the person was getting confused because they were seeing their own address displayed on our page. So it's all good. But yes.
Okay, we've got about 10 minutes left in this. Any comments or thoughts?
Matthew, we've got a few more questions coming through that I can read out, and that should get us to the 10 minutes. And if anybody has anything that they want to ask any of us, please get those questions through in the next couple of minutes so we have time to answer them. Next one quickly is, when is the Holo ecosystem expected to launch?
Related to the earlier alpha question, we'd like to get an alpha out in the next few months. Let's see. So my goal is June. Not everybody is on board with that timeline, but I want to push for that timeline in any case. Yeah, at least for alpha testing level stuff. And something that we can be able to get onto the boxes and get the boxes shipped, because I'm excited for that. But we're gonna have to make sure that
for those of you at home, Arthur tends to set aggressive goals. He's a rough taskmaster.
Yeah.
He's not the only one. I'm the one who chose to do a 34 city tour, right? He didn't task me with that. I went, okay, we need to go to Europe, and then said, okay, I only need 2 days in every city. So I guess he's not the only rough taskmaster, but.
So a couple of great questions
What's next,
here.
David?
Yep. Firstly, for a reserve token by Indiegogo purchase, tokens will be reserved until tomorrow 10 a.m. Am I correct?
Reserve tokens are released if you purchase them before the start of the ICO. They're released on March 31st, the third day of the ICO. If you go to your verify.holo.host dashboard, where you verified your identity and whitelisted, you should see the details of this and the exact day your tokens will be released and how many you have.
Yeah, and in general, if you haven't whitelisted,
they'll be released at 10 a.m. They'll be released at 10 a.m. on the 31st, and they'll be you can purchase them until 10 a.m. on April 1st, 10 a.m. GMT.
Yes, so they're live for 24 hours, and each day we will get them released by 10 a.m. It's possible, or 10 a.m. GMT. They may possibly sneak it out a little earlier because nobody else can buy your tokens during that day anyway. So there's no reason to hold them back. Yeah.
We have some details on gas pricing. If you're sending from a wallet not through MetaMask, you'll need to set your gas limit to, what is this? 155,000. Yep. And your gas price not below 4 Gwei.
Can you spell out for folks who aren't familiar with gas what 4 Gwei is?
To be honest, I'm not completely certain.
What Gwei is?
A Gwei is a billionth of an ETH, and so the gas prices are in Gwei. So 4 Gwei is 4 billionths of an ETH.
Great.
All right, so the
Other
next
questions?
question. Yep. Okay, so what transaction throughput do we expect initially?
That's a little bit of a misleading question in that there's no finite limit exactly to the transaction throughput. I mean, already Holochain can do much higher transaction throughputs. Basically, the finite limit is 1/2 the number of members in the system. If you have 1 million people in the system, and each one is doing a transaction with another, right? The most you could have happening simultaneously, not sequentially, but you can have up to 500,000 simultaneous transactions happening, because the only people locked up during a transaction are you and the counterparty that you're signing to each other's chains. And then the DHT, a shard, a portion of the DHT will validate that stuff in an asynchronous manner. So we do not know the initial throughput, and but the larger the network, the larger the throughput.
Yep.
So, we still have to do some kind of bulletproof scale testing.
Can I ask?
Kind of stuff? Yeah.
Go for it, Matthew.
Can I ask a slightly different question around that? I'll make it visible, which is sequential transactions. Do we have any thoughts on what that might look like, Arthur? Around, I'm sending something and then I want to send something else after that. And I'm waiting for the first one to go through.
It depends on the way you're doing the transaction. So if you want to do sequential transactions and you want to see how many you can do, in Holo there are pre-authorizations which automate the counterparty's side of the transaction. Like if I have pre-authorized you to send me this money, if I've invoiced you and it's a pre-authorization for you to send me this money, then when you send the money, my side automatically approves it and signs it instantly. You don't have to wait for me, a human, to interact with you. If you're doing a transaction where you have to negotiate that transaction with a human, your limit is the speed of the human, not the speed of the system, right? So if you're doing automated transactions where the counterparty has already pre-authorized it, then you can just bang, 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 do them probably multiples. I mean, let's just slow it down and account for latency and all that kind of stuff and say it may take you 5 or 10 seconds to do each transaction. The truth is it may take less. And Holo initially is going to be limited to microtransactions just for in its initial alpha stage type stuff. And so those will be very quick. One of the defense mechanisms we have recommended for larger transactions, and that we're encoding into Holo for larger transactions, but those won't apply initially, is publishing the header of the spender and waiting for a period to see if there's a collision with them trying to be double spending with somebody else in a large transaction. And we basically say the duration of your wait should be proportional to the size of the transaction. So it's not a straightforward answer to your question. It depends on the size of the transactions and whether they're automated or manual.
We've got time. We're going to run over by a couple of minutes. We've got time for...
That's wonderful, though, in that it makes visible the ways in which... Okay.
No, go for it, Matthew. Go for it.
I was going to say that's wonderful in that it makes visible the ways in which Holo chain applications in general are about being able to configure risk, being able to adjust game mechanics so that they are appropriate for the situation that you're facing. and enable you to adjust speed, scale, efficiency, affordability, et cetera, as well as security. And security is a weird word because it acts as if all risks are the same, but the risk that my tweet for my sweetheart picking up milk on the way home from work, the risk of that not getting through to her is very different from the risk of my $50 million transaction not going through to her, right? So not all risks are the same. Security failures are different, and holochain applications are specifically we're enabling people to design things that are use case appropriate in terms of all those trade-offs.
And
All right,
trying
go
to
ahead, David.
provide appropriate underlying infrastructure for them so they don't have to build that all from scratch.
All right, perfect. So a couple of requests here. So firstly, thank you to everyone who's participated in the ICO so far. Also, big thank you to everyone who's participated in the Indiegogo crowdfund campaign. Looking forward to seeing you guys who have had your tokens reserved come back on the Saturday. And reminding people that you can continue to purchase on the Indiegogo platform, so you can continue to be part of our on-demand campaign if you want to guarantee supply in the ICO. I think there's a couple of outstanding questions that we can leave until the next Q&A. Will, do you have an update on either any quick important questions, whether it's more questions about gas or access from the community, and also do you have an update on how we are in terms of the sale?
Yes. It looks like our sale is at 2,098 Ether, which is, wait, I'm reloading my other page now. Close to, maybe this didn't reload.
Yeah, close to 1 million euro sold of the 2.5.
Right, coming up on 10 billion hot, which is 1 million euro. Right. And I just thought I'd shout out our whitelist numbers. I think 1,700 people are on our whitelists, which is really wonderful to see.
Yeah, like 1,800, right?
Yeah, 1,796. I haven't checked this recently, but last time I checked, it was from like, I don't remember exactly, like 130 countries or something, which is just wild. Like, I made a little map out of all the countries, and like, just almost all of it's lit up. It's really amazing to see how widespread our group of people is.
Same with purchases from the Indiegogo campaign, right? 122 countries.
Yeah, a lot.
Brilliant. So yeah, Matthew, that's it from the question side of things. The only thing I'd say is 170 participants so far in the ICO, which is nice to see that we've got a large number coming through.
Well, I guess we'll leave it for now. I'll just say a couple of things. As David said, thank you everyone so much for participating in the Indiegogo campaign. Thank you for participating in the ICO. Thank you to those of you who are already building applications. Thanks to those of you who are hosting meetups and attending hackathons and all of that. I am, as I mentioned before, I'm on a tour through Eastern Europe at the moment, and we'll be visiting some more of Central and Northern Europe again shortly. If you are anywhere in, Poland, Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Greece, Bulgaria, Norway, Amsterdam, Berlin, Munich, Geneva, please, I would love to meet with you. I would love to meet with your communities. I'd love to get connected with other people. Go to chat.holochain.net. I'm at Matthew Joseph. You can just send me a direct message on there, or you can message Greg. He's at Greg. So would love to connect with our community around the globe. And if you know people in those places, please put us in touch with them. You can also do that via email. I'm Matt at holo.host, M-A-T-T at holo.host. All right. Thank you. Any other goodbyes?
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Exciting to see it working. Glad we're sorting out the gas price issues. Thank you all for supporting us in so many ways. I'm also thinking about like housing Matthew and me and others in our travels and
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
we've been getting a lot of community support.
If you have any other
almost
questions,
everywhere we've gone.
if you have any more questions, join us on Telegram or our chat server, and we'll be on there answering them. But most of all, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Woohoo!
Bye.
Bye.
Holo.
Holo.